Hi, buddy. I'm Matt.
And I'm Steve.
And this is Marvel Reread Club.
Okay, so Matt, both you and I have been doing a fair amount of traveling here. You have been in Europe?
Yes, we had a wonderful family vacation to Europe. We did Venice, Paris, and London, and had a wonderful time in each. We did a gondola ride and all sorts of wonderful stuff in Venice. In Paris, we did the catacombs, which was an excellent thing to do on a 99-degree day because the catacombs is always nice and cool. But we went out to a nice meal. We did we did the Louvre. We did all sorts of wonderful stuff in Paris. In London, we saw two shows. We saw the Midsummer Night's Dream at Shakespeare's Globe, which was just fantastic. One of the best Shakespeare shows I've ever seen. We saw The Mousetrap, which has been running for 75 years in the West End, an Agatha Christie play. We just had a wonderful time. We had a wonderful trip. And you are currently traveling in Maine. Is that correct?
I am. I had a layover basically in New York City for 3 days, and in which I saw the Braves play the Mets, saw both games of a split doubleheader.
Wow.
And then we came up here to Maine, and that's where we are at the moment, enjoying the beautiful, cool Maine being. It's just being here in Maine.
Are you having a bee-in?
Yes, let's go ahead and call it that. There have been a few bees that have bothered us while we've been up here, but yeah.
That's the problem with bee-ins.
That is the problem with bee-ins, exactly. Also, I just saw the new Spider-Man movie last night. Have you made it out to that yet?
No, we were in Europe, so we haven't seen it yet. We've talked about doing the Zendaya, Tom Holland double feature of Odyssey and Spider-Man, neither of which we've seen, but we haven't done either one yet.
Yeah, they were both playing at the cinema and pizza house here in Mount Desert Island. And so they were right next to each other. So we could very easily have done one and then just jumped over and done the other. But we have not done that yet.
I don't know if anyone can take that much Tom Holland and Zendaya.
Yeah, that would be a bit much. And so also in terms of some comics news we haven't talked about, and specifically some Marvel comics news, Marvel finally has decamped from New York City altogether.
Yes, they've moved to Burbank. Yes, it is a shocker. I'm sure it's terrible for a lot of people who work there and have to decide whether or not they have to move for their job or whether or not they have to give up their job. But, DC did it a couple years ago, and now Marvel's done it. It sort of makes sense to be in the same place as your bosses, your Disney higher-up bosses. But I imagine it's just traumatic for a lot of people.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. If you're a New Yorker and then suddenly you've got to decide, am I going to now be a Burbank person or am I going to remain in New York and have to find a new job? That's going to be a really tough decision for folks to make. Yeah. So anyway, I can't think of anything else that we needed to talk about in preliminaries here, but I'm glad that you had a fantastic vacation, and I have been having a fantastic one myself so far as well. So let's go ahead and get into talking about these things. What we're doing this episode is Amazing Spider-Man number 69, Daredevil number 49, Thor number 161, X-Men number 53, and Incredible Hulk 112. These are books with a cover date of February 1969.
Yes. All right. So you want to go ahead and jump in and do Spider-Man then?
I will do my best. The Amazing Spider-Man, Mission Crush the Kingpin. And on the cover, we have the Kingpin leaning over Spidey, grabbing him by the wrist and crushing his wrist in a way that looks like it is quite painful and debilitating.
Yes.
So Mission Crush the Kingpin, produced by Stan the Man Lee, script John Ring-a-Ding Romita, storyboards, so not pencils, but storyboards, Jim Madman Mooney, illustration, so not inks, but illustration, Sam Sleepy Rosen, letterer. So John Romita is doing what is sometimes referred to as breakdowns or layouts but in this case, they're calling it storyboards. And then Jim Mooney is doing what they sometimes call finishes, but in this case, they're referring to it as illustration, where you do the finished pencils and the inks. And they usually have standardized pay rates for these different subdivisions of the work.
Yeah, and it looks gorgeous. It's great.
It does.
This first page of looking down on the city with Spider-Man on a building in the foreground, really sophisticated work with the way the webs underneath his arms interact with the city underneath. Just fantastic work. This is just as good as Romita inking himself here, which is a high compliment. I think it really looks gorgeous.
Yeah, some of the vanishing point stuff it looks a little bit off to me, but
yeah, you're right.
But I think that maybe some of the vanishing points are put a little too close together, is what it looks like to me. It looks like it's actually following a vanishing point, perhaps. But anyway, one way or the other, that's neither here nor there. So Spider-Man is out and about searching for the Kingpin. Now, the Kingpin, meanwhile, now has this ancient tablet with this untranslated writing on it. So he is hoping to lure Spider-Man to him in addition to using this tablet for its own value. And he overhears one of his men make some kind of a comment about his wife. Someone says, the Kingpin ain't scared of nobody except his missus. And Kingpin says, I heard that. And smacks the guy around and then says, this guy's washed up in this town. He can't work in the gangs anymore. But he's beneath the dignity of having him murdered, basically.
But he doesn't even say, like, you said I was scared of my wife. He just says, what did I say, boss? It says, you mentioned my wife. So not just saying that he's scared of his wife, but even mentioning the wife in any context, even to say that she's a great doll, would have been something that would have gotten you beaten up by Kingpin and thrown out. And lucky that he lets you live. So this is interesting. This is another wrinkle to the character we've never seen before. We've never had any sense of his private life. And I think it's great. I think it's a great way to expand this character. And the wife will just become a more and more interesting part of the character as other writers handle the two of them in coming years, including the great Frank Miller.
Yes, and they have very much played into that relationship in the first Netflix and now Disney Plus Daredevil show as well. They have made her a pretty central part of his character.
Yeah.
So we see him put the tablet back in his special vault, and I think we saw last time, but they make it clear this time as well, that the vault has no lock on it. It's just a door that's so heavy that only he could open it. Of course, he or any other super-powered, super strength character, which is something he does not seem to have thought through.
As we'll see.
Yes. So the students who were involved in the protests in the previous issue are all still being questioned by the cops. J. Jonah Jameson is wanting to know how these anarchists will be punished. And Captain Stacy is very much keeping a much more level head about this whole thing. We see more interaction between the senior and junior Robinsons here.
Robertson. I think it's Robertson, right?
Is it Robertson? I guess so.
Robertson. I think it's Robertson, but Randy and Robbie. But I really like this conversation. This is just this feels like, again, a very well-written episode of some sort of drama, well-written episode of Hill Street Blues, or well-written episode of some 60s drama, well-written episode of the Bod Squad or something, where you've got talk about you've become part of the establishment, the white man's establishment. I got to live that down. And both characters, Randy the son and Robbie the dad, really get some blows in. And it's an excellent conversation.
Yes, I do notice that the head of the protesters at one point says, we ain't never going to get nowhere until we kind of shake Whitey up a little, which, it's one of those things where it's like that might be dialogue that would make sense. But coming from Stan Lee, it sort of comes across a little bit like, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But I mean, perhaps that actually is what makes sense. So there are now demonstrators outside of the police department to try and get the demonstrators out. And they've got an odd chant. They're saying,
yes.
Cook an egg, cook your goose, turn the demonstrators loose, which
yes.
You could workshop that a little bit more. That's yeah. So Gwen Stacy comes up and is saying to the protesters, hey, you're not necessarily making things better here. And they're like, hey, look, it's that coward Peter's girlfriend. And she's like, what are you saying about my boyfriend? And goes ahead and smacks the guy. And then the police recognize her as Captain Stacy's daughter. So they let her into the police station where she has a conversation with her father. And her father says, well, what did he say? And are you angry because it was a lie or because you're afraid it was true? And she's like, I wish I knew. So Spider-Man, using his spider sense, finds where the Kingpin is and is about to pry his way in through this doorway, this sort of window that has these steel shutters on it. But then he's just thinking, wait a minute, this just seems too easy. I think this might be a trap. So then we see a couple of panels later what looks like Spider-Man coming in through these steel shutters and getting blasted at by the Kingpin's gangsters. But it turns out that Spider-Man has just taken off his top and put it on a webbed up dummy and thrown that in through the window. And then he comes in a moment later wearing his mask and his pants and his gloves, but no shirt, and proceeds to beat up the Kingpin's men. By the way, the Kingpin was upset with his men that they started shooting because he was like, no, I'm supposed to be the one who has the satisfaction of defeating Spider-Man. I don't want him killed by you. Actually, there's some stuff in here that reminds me a little bit of some of the fight scenes in the latest movie, just in the way that he's interacting with webbing. So any of you out there who have or have not seen the movie, it's not really a spoiler of any sort, but just you can see whether you're reminded of it the same way when you see that. So Spider-Man and Kingpin are having a big old fight. Spider-Man eventually gets his shirt back on in the middle of the fight, which seems improbable.
Well, especially because the shirt was stuffed with webbing. So how's he going to get the webbing that's been stuffed in the shirt out of it? And then plus, shouldn't the shirt have a bunch of bullet holes in it now? Because the whole idea was to get them to shoot at it, which indeed we did see there were bullet holes in the shirt earlier, but now the bullet holes are gone.
It's, perhaps he has gotten a hold of some unstable molecules.
Yes, exactly.
Eventually, the Kingpin gets Spider-Man's hand in a vice grip, or his wrist, and this is what we saw on the cover. And he squeezes it so hard that even when he gets free, his hand is still numb, and he's trying to get the rest of the way through the fight with his numb hand and trying to get it to get the blood circulation going again. Spider-Man eventually defeats Kingpin, at least for the short term, and the Kingpin does end up getting arrested, and he thinks to himself that he's powerful enough that he could snap these handcuffs if he wanted to, but that he has another purpose. And he says to the cops as he's being led off, he says, by now, my web-swinging ally has taken it safely away from here, that it being the tablet, just as he will free me from captivity when the time is ripe. And one of the cops says, then Jameson was right. Spider-Man's in this as deep as you. Kingpin thinks with a few choice words, I've sealed the wall crawler's doom. So Spider-Man, meanwhile, follows one of the Kingpin's underlings and follows him to the door, the big heavy door that has the tablet behind it. So he's able to force the door open, go in there, find the tablet, and he's like, great, now I'll be able to return this to the cops and everything will be hunky-dory. And he comes out and they start firing at him because, of course, they have just had reason to believe that they think they've gotten confirmation that he's actually working with the Kingpin and has stolen this piece. And so Spider-Man's like, okay, if that's how they want it, I'm through being a public fall guy. From now on, it's Spidey against the world. If they call me a menace and treat me like a menace, I might as well be a menace. Next, point of no return.
Mm-hmm. So this is a little weird. He's like, it's unclear why he even grabs the tablet. Like, is it because he doesn't realize that the cops have already arrested Kingpin? Like, why does he even not just go like, okay, you guys arrest Kingpin, get the tablet back, it's all set. Instead, he grabs the tablet, and then seemingly then when he sees the cop, he wants to give them the tablet, but then they start firing at him. So he's like, okay, fine, I'll just actually steal the tablet and presumably hire a translator to get the secret off of it. I don't know. It's very unclear what he wants with the tablet or why he is now going off with it or how he even ended up with the tablet in the first place. But somehow he's got himself in a real mess here.
I didn't find that unclear. I just thought that he was, like, oh, okay, now once the tablet is returned, then the student protesters aren't going to be in as much trouble. And because then the item has been returned. And yeah, I mean, maybe he didn't think the cops would be able to get in through that vault door. I don't know, but it didn't strike me as that odd. One thing I will point out is that one of Kingpin's underlings near the beginning of the story is referred to as Wilson, which is ironic given that later they end up giving Kingpin the name Wilson Fisk.
Oh, have they not done that yet?
No, I think we determined that he isn't named Wilson Fisk until Frank Miller.
Oh, okay.
I'm pretty sure that it was assumed that he was a mafia don up until they give him the very non-mafia don name of Wilson Fisk.
Huh. Okay.
So, yeah, I could be wrong on that, but I thought that we had determined that earlier.
Okay, let's see. Read through my notes here. Yeah, we see Kingpin try to use his laser cane for the first time in a long time, but Spider-Man busts it up and doesn't let him use it. Yeah, I say at the end, good fight makes for a good issue. Beautiful Romita Mooney art. Great Robertson conversation. Wife is a good escalation for the Kingpin character.
Yep, indeed. Okay, so I think I'm done with that issue if you are, and we are now ready to move on to a towering triumph of comics history. Here comes Daredevil, the Man Without Fear, number 49.
Yes. Although, you seem to be setting up me to say that it's a terrible issue. It's not a terrible issue. It's just not great. Here comes Daredevil, the Man Without Fear, number 49. We have a wordless cover with Daredevil swinging up and getting into a fight with the giant robot, and the robot tearing off his mask and costume, which doesn't actually happen on the inside. Then we go to the actual interior of the issue. We finally find out the title, which is Daredevil Drops Out. There was sort of a moral panic going on at the time about dropouts and how everyone was dropping out of everything because of the turn on, tune in, dropout advice coming from a Harvard professor of all people, Timothy Leary. And this was sort of creating this panic about dropping out. And here we have Daredevil dropping out. It says script and art by Stan the Man Lee and Gene the Dean Colan, George Klein embellisher, Artie Simek letterer. So I always love Klein's inks on Colan, and I do love them in this issue. I think Klein and Colan are just a fantastic combo. So we begin with Daredevil is coming home. He says, I've had it. It's over. I'm giving up the role of Daredevil forever. And he comes inside his house, is monologuing about how he doesn't want to be Daredevil anymore because it's cost him Karen Page. It's cost him so much. He then takes off his clothes and then takes off the Daredevil costume that's under his clothes. So now, and then he even takes his sunglasses off, which is something he rarely does in this book. So he's just in his green pants, no shirt, and not even any sunglasses. And then he opens his closet and there's a giant armored robot inside his closet waiting to kill him. It says, my mission, destroy you. And it's like, that's not good. And starts trying to kill him. Daredevil, with his glasses off this whole time, which we never see in this comic, is fighting this robot for several pages. And when I say several pages, I mean many, many pages. And then the robot says he must be taken to the master and starts hauling away Daredevil, still just in his pants and nothing else. But suddenly he's like, a strange sound, not covered in my instructions. I sense unexpected danger. My first function is to protect myself. I must leave my victim and flee. So this robot gets scared off real easy. And just by Willie Lincoln coming up. So I didn't know if we'd ever see Willie Lincoln again. This is the equally blind friend of Matt Murdock's, who he helped clear the name of in court. And Vietnam veteran, former cop Willie Lincoln. He has his cane and his seeing eye dog and chases away the robot. We then cut to a couple months ago as we find out that the mobster who framed Willie Lincoln is in jail and is hiring some sort of devious looking guy named Star Saxon to get his revenge for him.
Now, on page 10, panel 3, what is up with Star Saxon's face?
I like it. I like Star Saxon's face.
Okay. It just really looks not quite human to me.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay. All right.
He's an evil looking dude.
Again, on page 11, panel 3, we see that same strange look that just looks like the illustration isn't quite finished. It looks like there aren't enough spotted blacks on that face, or not enough line weight differentiation. It just looks odd.
Okay. So then Star Saxon goes back to his castle. Of course, everyone has to have a castle in the land around New York City. And then he goes to his castle where he's got the giant robot he's been making. And he goes ahead and he gives it a picture of Daredevil. It's like, well, if it just had a picture of Daredevil, why did it attack Matt Murdock in his apartment? But then it reveals that I only need to insert your victim-to-be's specially treated photograph into the built-in aromascope. Though Though it seems like an ordinary photo, the chemically treated paper also contains certain odoriferous elements. When added to your infallible memory bank, will make it possible for you to find and recognize Daredevil no matter where he hides, no matter how he is disguised. So he somehow has stolen the smell of Daredevil, which is also the smell of Matt Murdock, and attaches it to a photograph that he feeds into this thing. And now the robot can sniff Matt Murdock out even when he's not looking like Daredevil. It's all very strange.
Even if we take all of this at face value, I still am wondering how the armored robot got into his closet.
Yes.
What?
With no sign of a break-in or anything. Yes, it's a fascinating question. So then cut to Matt Murdock, who is getting bandaged up by Willie Lincoln. He then gets away, turns into Daredevil, and as he suspected, the robot has found him again and attacks him again. But the robot did not count on one thing. Daredevil has greased himself. It says... So he's grabbed by the robot and suddenly he squishes out. It says squish, squish. It says, didn't expect me to have greased my costume, eh? Even a robot can be a dummy. My reflexes are too slow. Personally, I think it's your mouthwash, but I can adjust them with ease. And then they keep getting in a fight. And finally the robot figures out, I'm going to pick up this gym mat and wrap you up in a gym mat. Then it won't matter that you're greased. And says, now all I need to do is increase the pressure and my mission will be accomplished. And it says, don't miss next issue. That's how we leave things off. So, we found out in the last issue, in the Spider-Man issue we looked at, that Spider-Man at one point gets tangled up in his own webbing, which doesn't usually happen in Spider-Man comics. But they implied that it happened because he wasn't wearing his costume. So I'm like going, oh, is his costume somehow webbing proof, but his skin isn't? And then I'm like, well, does that mean that his costume is also greased? Does everybody in the Marvel Universe have a greased costume at all times?
But then if they're wearing them under their regular clothes, does that mean they're getting the grease all over the insides of their clothes? Yeah, it's, I don't know. I found this issue to be pretty thoroughly ridiculous.
Oh, yeah.
Between the greased costume and the robot that just sort of can hide in your closet without a sign of a break-in, and just the whole thing just does not work for me.
I think it's fine. I certainly agree with all your criticisms, but I like that we've got a new robot maker in Star Saxon who will go on to have a good history in Marvel Comics. I like this robot fine. I like the design of it. I think that Cohen and Klein are doing a good job on the robot. And it's a hero versus robot issue. That's you get what you get and you don't get upset.
Okay. You get what you get and you don't get upset.
Oh, I see. I don't get upset. I got what I got and I did not get upset, but you got the same thing and you did get upset.
Yes,
okay.
Indeed. Okay.
There's an interesting letter at the end saying, by the way, I read an article about someone in Russia who really learned to read by reading printed letters on a page. So this is really true. But then it's from Mrs. Vivian Sutton of Kingsland, Georgia. Then she ends by saying, P.S. I'm the mother of 6 children, ages ranging from 17 years down to 3 years. And I read all the mags printed by Marvel Comics Group. I recommend them very highly to anyone who likes to read. Very constructive reading, and your imagination is unexcelled. I cannot decide which one is my favorite because they are all my favorites. So that's interesting. We've got a mother of 6 writing in. Nice contrast to the endless parade of nerdy dudes who usually write in.
Yes, indeed. Okay, so I believe that's it for me for that issue. Shall we move on to the Mighty Thor?
So yes, Let's move on to the Mighty Thor.
So Thor number 161, Shall a God Prevail? And we see on the cover Ego and Galactus facing off with Thor caught in between them. Yeah,
very much so, which is going to bring us to the issue for this issue, which is that you look at this cover and you're like, why is Thor even there? Like, if Ego and Galactus are wailing on each other, like, why would Thor want to get in the middle of that? And right away on the cover, you can sort of tell that Thor doesn't belong in the middle of this battle.
So at the end of last issue, the ship that Thor and the Recorder were in was destroyed, and they're left floating out in space. And then we get the credits at the bottom. Produced and immortalized by Stan the Man Lee and Jack King Kirby. Embellishment Vince Colletta, lettering Sam Rosen. So the same creative team we've had on this book for years now.
Yes, unfortunately.
Yes.
To be clear, when I say unfortunately we've had this creative team on this book for years, I can't complain about Lee and Kirby doing the book for years. It's just that I wish the inker had not been Vince Glitter all these years. And for at least, I think, a year more until we're going to get just a brief run of Everett inking the book, and it's going to look 1,000 times better. But we are still waiting for that.
Well, pages 2 and 3 are a fantastic Kirby photo collage,
Yes.
which is amazing. So we see a photo collage of all the wreckage floating in space, and then there is a ship that approaches them, and it says, "Two there are who survived the Holocaust. Let them now be brought aboard."
As usual, you look at this photo collage and you have no idea what you're looking at. Like, it's just completely psychedelic, bizarre collection of junk that just looks gorgeous. It's just beautiful, really reproducing well, much better than some of the other photo collages that Kirby would do. He's really gotten the hang of it now. He must just have the time of his life making these, things and photographing them as if he's Joseph Cornell or, one of these other modern artists who was doing these collages at the time. And it is just gorgeous. I love it. And it's interesting that he doesn't wait until pages 12 and 13 to do the 2-page splash, which they often do because they reproduce better on pages 12 and 13. He just goes and does them on pages 2 and 3, even though it creates a little bit of a gutter problem. But he doesn't mind, and I don't mind.
Right. Yeah, he just avoids it by just leaving a gutter there rather than trying to get it to match up at the edges. Yeah. So Thor and the Recorder are brought on board this ship that we saw on pages 2 and 3. And this is a ship belonging to the so-called Wanderers, and we will learn more about them in a moment. Meanwhile, we cut to Ego blasting Galactus's little hover ship, his little shuttle that he's got.
So I should point out that this is a no price book panel. This whole splash page on page 5 is a no price book panel because they claim in the no price book that it's supposed to say, "Though you deem yourself invincible within your flying Visisphere, shall the cosmic destructoblast of the living planet hurl you from me like a hapless chunk of space debris." But I've never bought that this is a mistake. Like, if you are trying to get away from Ego, one thing you could do to protect yourself is to be invincible. Another thing you could do to protect yourself is to be invisible. And especially if he's inside a Visisphere to do it, I would think he might want to be trying to stay invisible. So I never quite bought that this is a no prize book worthy mistake. But anyway.
Yeah, no, that didn't even occur to me that would be a problem there. That read to me as perfectly reasonable. Anyway, we get Galactus and Ego fighting each other for the next few pages. Thor and the Recorder are revived in the Wanderer's ship. Yeah, so the Wanderers are talking about how they have had no real direction or guidance since their world was destroyed, except for their hatred for Galactus. But then the leader of the Wanderers says to his people, "Wanderers all, heed you my words. The mighty Thor seeks battle with him who has shattered our world. Does the son of Odin fight alone?" And everyone shouts, "Not so." So they are all going to join forces in fighting Galactus here. Although they get too close to the battle that's going on between Galactus and Ego, and their ship looks like it's getting destroyed. So again, as you said, maybe they should just let that fight play out and see who wins and then see if there's anything they need to do afterwards. Thor ends up throwing himself into the fray here and fighting Galactus. And Galactus, he actually is able to hurt Galactus here. Galactus says, "For the first time in a millennium, my limbs have tasted pain. He who has the power to cause so monumental an affront must forthwith perish. Such is the will of Galactus." So Thor is now on Galactus's list here but then that distracts him from Ego.
Well, it looks like Galactus sort of grabs Thor and hurls him at Ego as a weapon on page 16.
Yes.
So another reason why it's like, Thor, just stay out of this, man. This is your main role in this battle is to be a weapon to be used to be flung by one or the other here.
Yes, indeed. So yeah, Thor finds himself now on the surface of Ego, where the rest of the Wanderers have ended up with their wrecked ship. And Thor uses some debris from the wrecked ship to build some sort of a stand to put Mjolnir on that allows him to concentrate power. Did you get what was going on with this here on page 18?
No, not at all. He seems to create some sort of stand for his hammer and then is using that to somehow, at my command, I hurl it forth that it may smite Galactus. So somehow he's draining power from Galactus. He's killing Galactus here by draining his power away by using his hammer in this stand. That's not something I would think he would have the power to do. And I don't see how the stand is helping him in any way, but somehow it's working.
Yes. So Galactus says, the agony grows ever greater. It drains my strength as sunlight drains the dark. If I do not flee, then I shall surely perish, and Galactus must not die. So he leaves, and everybody celebrates. But then the Wanderers are like, yeah, but our ship is destroyed, and we're here on this planet that has no soil, it has no vegetation, it has no animal life. Like, what are we supposed to do? And then Ego creates sort of an Eden for them on his surface, on a portion of his surface at least. And then you see a personification of Ego rise up from the surface to say, I am Ego. For what has here been done this day, I grant you sanctuary. Wanderers, make of me your home forever, until the end of time.
Or until the next time that Ego becomes a villain, in which case Ego will, in a later appearance, be a villain again. And they'll be like, what about those guys, the Wanderers, who were living on you? And he's like, oh, I killed them all.
Oh, so, really?
So much for make of me your home forever until the end of time. It's like, make of me your home forever until someone else wants to turn Ego back into a villain and kill these guys off. But if we ignore those later stories, this story works just fine.
Yes, indeed.
The number one problem in this issue is that we've got this great Galactus versus Ego battle that's so great that we may not need the Wanderers or the Recorder or Thor to even be part of it. And it's a little unclear why they then decide, like, oh, we must stop Galactus. He's the bad guy. It's like, isn't Ego also a bad guy? How did you randomly, seemingly flip a coin and decide which one to help and which one to attack? And then, but then, obviously Galactus is clearly a bad guy, and getting rid of him isn't the worst thing to do. And then, Ego then seems to turn out to be a good guy after all and gives a paradise to the Wanderers, and it's all great. But as we will later find out, nope. Thor either chose wrong or should not have chosen at all, and just ends up getting all the Wanderers killed. But it's so we've got this fundamental problem with the issue of the fact that how do you choose what to do in this issue, and did you choose the right one? But it is a gorgeous issue. Action, the cosmic action between Ego and Galactus is just gorgeous. The 2-page photo collage, double page spread is just gorgeous. I'm not a big fan of Colitis Inks throughout the issue. Of course, if you look on page 12, we have a fantastic splash page of Thor swirling his hammer, but the dynamism of it is ruined by the scratchy hatching on Thor's arms, under his arms and under his hands. And it's just a big mistake. Oh my God, we've just never had Klein inking Kirby, but if we could have Klein inking Kirby, I'd love to see that. I'd love to see any one of 100 better inkers inking this book, but unfortunately we don't have it.
I did find one more note that I had in here. When Galactus and Ego are first confronting each other, Galactus is saying, never before has Galactus faced power incalculable such as that of Ego, but never has the ultimate triumph not been mine. I'm like, buddy, I think that relatively recently you were repelled from Earth and lost your herald. I believe that was one time when the ultimate triumph was not indeed yours. But
you should just run around behind Galactus, fact checking him at all times, going like, actually, Galactus is like, why did I agree to have a fact checker?
Yes. I believe I shall seek out that job.
Yes. If not quite the same as Herald of Galactus, but spell checker of Galactus, fact checker of Galactus, just as good as Herald.
Yes. All right. So I believe X-Men is your turn.
Okay. Now this is a terrible issue. Let's go ahead and take a look. at X-Men number 53. Now, the good news is we have the debut of one of Marvel's best pencilers. Yay, they finally recruited some good new talent on this book. They've got a great penciler. Fantastic. There's just a problem. He sucks. He is not a great penciler yet. He will go on to be a great penciler, but none of that is even remotely predictable from this awful, awful issue. This is The Rage of Blastar, Stan Lee editor, Arnold Drake writer, Barry Smith artist, Michael D. Inker, Herb Cooper letterer. So Barry Smith, later will be known as Barry Windsor Smith, he is going to have a few more tryouts on, I think this is the only issue of X-Men he does, but then he's going to get to do a couple issues of Avengers, I think. And then eventually they will put him on a C-list book. They will put him on Conan, where he can, continue to do his C-list art and not do any damage. But then something happens. The first couple issues of Conan look better than this, but not that much better than this. But then he suddenly starts to become great. He really responds to the material on Conan. And by the time you get to like the 7th issue of Conan, he is suddenly doing gorgeous, amazing work. And he stays on that book through issue 25 and does just gorgeous, amazing work throughout, or I guess through issue 24. And it is just amazing to see in that Conan book. However, you cannot predict that here. And I kept thinking here, they say with filmmakers how like male filmmakers, often have like terrible debut movies and then they're given another chance and they make wonderful movies after that. And female filmmakers always say like, oh, we're not given that chance. If we don't hit it out of the park every time, that then we don't get given a second chance. And I keep thinking like, what if Barry Smith had been a woman? Because somebody looked at this issue. They could tell he wasn't good enough to now stay on and be the regular penciler on X-Men, but somebody kept giving him more and more chances. And then eventually it turned out, yes, there was greatness in him, but it's amazing that anybody could have predicted that or would have given him another chance after this issue. We begin with Blastar is flying around. Is this actually in the negative zone?
I believe
wilderness of negative space.
Yes, I believe it is the negative zone. What I'm unsure, apparently what had been a tyrant of some world in the negative zone, but then he was overthrown and tied to an asteroid, basically, which was then freed by the Fantastic Four, more or less by accident. But so he's been banished back to the negative zone. Why hasn't he just conquered himself on another planet? I don't get why he's just sort of like, oh, if only I could go and conquer people. Yeah,
it's almost as if they're implying here the negative zone is uninhabited, as if he was not from there himself. But he is zipping around in negative space, using his blast from his fingers to sort of propel himself and wishing he could somehow get free. And then, surely enough, he does get a chance to get free. We cut to Cyclops, Beast, and Marvel Girl, who are experimenting with one of Professor Xavier's mind machines. It's unclear what they're exactly trying to do. It says a mechanism that through mental commands alone can transmute your own matter into radio energy. Once conquered, the device can radio your essence into deepest space. So they're trying to somehow using one of Professor Xavier's leftover mind machines, they're going to create a way for her to teleport herself into deep space. I'm not sure why she would want to even do that, but this is something that they are experimenting with. And so then they're experimenting with this. And then suddenly, instead of having her teleport herself into deep space, which she probably wouldn't even want to do, they accidentally summon Blastar from the negative zone. Now you'll see that the art is attempting to be Kirby. So Barry Smith seems to want nothing more or less here than to be a Kirby knockoff, but he is not pulling it off. And he is, he's got lots of Kirby crackle. You can give that to him, but the art looks like it was done by a 8th grader. It looks very amateurish and clunky. Jean's skirt is way too short on page 3 and throughout the book. It's like, okay, dude, I would not want to be any woman wearing a skirt that short. And then one thing he keeps doing throughout the book is he keeps forgetting to draw all the lines he needs to draw on Blastar to show where his boots end and where his outfit ends. So like on page 5, the poor colorist just has to fake all these lines showing where all the lines of the clothing are supposed to be. And that's true almost throughout the book.
So I will also point out on page 5 that the Beast says that the machine is soaking up every last drop of energy from our atomic generator. So apparently the X-Men have an atomic generator. Oh, by the way, it just occurred to me, where are they?
I assume they're in Xavier's mansion. I assume they're in the basement of Xavier's mansion.
Last time we saw them, they were in San Francisco, right?
Yeah.
And the Xavier's mansion was theoretically all mothballed. And, yeah, no, that just occurred to me. I guess maybe they're just ignoring the thing they got from the FBI saying that they had to break up and leave Westchester.
Yeah, that seems to be forgotten at this point. But so then Blastar shows up. He goes ahead and fights everybody. And that basically takes us through the next 10 pages. He fights all of the X-Men one by one. For the most part, for some reason, he is just punching them. He is not blasting the blasts out of his fingers at them. And then it's a little bit unclear to me. I'm just going to jump to the end here because it's a terrible book. Somehow, Blastar dies. He says Blastar is standing in the seemingly ruins of the machinery that Marvel Girl was using. And then they go, what an irony. The thing that set him free is now destroying him. It was wild energy from Professor Xavier's mind machine that freed him. And the water from the melted ice mannequin formed a power link between Blastar and that electricity. So Iceman attacked him with an ice mannequin. It melted, and just don't get the machine wet because it'll kill you. And so then he is killed by the very machine that freed him. Oh, irony. What a wonderful storytelling device that is. Actually, no, in this case, it is not. It's just inane. And then this little done-in-one story is all over. And the whole thing is just stupid. I hate to use that word on this podcast. I never use that word on this podcast. I don't like to describe things as dumb or stupid, but this issue is just inane. That's the word I prefer to use. And the art is just terrible. It's just terrible. It looks so amateurish. And, I could do better. I could do better than this issue, and I am not a good comic book penciler. It's just amazing that he was given so many chances before he finally got great. Before we move on to the back story, what were your thoughts about this story, Steve?
Well, yeah, it's funny. I didn't find it quite as you gave the Daredevil issue a little more latitude than I did, and I'm giving this one a little bit more latitude than you did. I'm not saying it's good by any means, but it's not dumb and stupid necessarily. But then a couple little notes along the way and some of the stuff that you skimmed over. Iceman at one point is trying to revive an unconscious beast, and he says, I'll slip him a whiff of frozen oxygen. Not too much, though. Don't want to injure the lung tissue. Like, how is that a power? Yes. I don't, that doesn't seem to make much sense. And then at one point, a little while later, again, another Iceman moment. He is interacting with Marvel Girl. Marvel Girl says, and don't give me that nonsense about how you want me to stay safely out of the way. And Bobby says, grr, sometimes I think we made our biggest goof when we gave women the vote. Okay, okay, brain lady, what's your big notion of yours? So I'm like, Bobby, he's, wants to repeal the vote for women.
Yes. Brain lady. That's like the worst insult you could hurl at anybody. Yes. She's a brain lady. I don't know. I kind of like brain ladies.
Yes.
So if you, this is apropos of nothing, but I found out that like there's this new insult, I guess, sort of from the manosphere space of wife man, that guys who talk about how much they love their wife are known as wife men. And this is like an insult. Like, oh, that's a guy who loves his wife. Ugh.
That reminds me of, it was one of the early Roman emperors. It may have been Augustus, who clearly actually loved his wife, and that was like a whole thing in ancient Rome. Everybody like, get a load of this guy. He actually loves his wife. What's the deal with him? So I guess it's got a long tradition there, Matt.
Oh, good. Glad to know that we're keeping great traditions alive.
Yes, indeed. No, I would probably be considered a wife man.
Yeah.
So
not a problem. Not a problem with me.
All right. So shall we move on to the final book of this episode?
No, we've got to cover the story in the back of X-Men.
Right. I always forget about that. When we were wrapping up the X-Men story, and then I forget that we've got this backup feature, which this is not one of the better ones.
Yeah, but concluding the 5-part blockbuster origin of Hank McCoy. So they're highlighting the fact that stuff takes a really long time to get done in this backup feature. They're just 5 pages at a time. And I guess that they just can't move very fast. So we've had an epic 5-month, fairly innocuous story of the origin of Hank McCoy, the Beast. And he had to grab a experimental solar generator. I think it wasn't solar in the previous issues. I think it was just nuclear, but now it's solar, to give to this villain called the Conquistador, who had his parents captive. And he wakes up and gets into a fight with the guy, even though he seemingly has reason not to. And then the X-Men show up, defeat the Conquistador. Professor Xavier seems to just flat out kill him. He goes, the electricity, it's not entering my transmitters. It's pouring into me. Crackle, kawoom. And then the whole place explodes. So presumably, Xavier has just killed the man. And Xavier says, that's my doing, friends. I use my telekinetic power to alter his circuits. Wait, where's the boy? And then Beast is, I'm not sure the others ever even knew this or if they just forgot it, but Beast is, we just see his parents just very briefly in the background of the panel. It says, here he comes, Professor. He stayed behind to find his folks and free them. Some spunk, S-P-U-N-K, exclamation point. And so I'm glad that someone remembered they had his parents kidnapped. And even though we don't get much time with them. And then the Beast joins the X-Men, gets his costume, and now all of the dude X-Men are assembled, except for Jean, who we know shows up in the first issue. So are we finally done with all of the flashbacks here? Or maybe.
I'm not sure. No, because I think we still haven't gotten Angel's origin. So
that's true.
I don't know if they're going to do him next or not. But you didn't do the credits for the backup feature here, and I have a question about them.
Okay, yeah, sorry, I skipped the credits. The credits are this wild and woolly wrap-up produced by Stan Lee, written by Arnold Drake, designed by Werner Roth, inked by John Tartaglione, lettered by Gene Simek Izzo. Gene, quote, Simek, end quote, Izzo. So is this the first appearance of Gene Simek, who I think is Artie Simek's daughter?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, that's what I was wondering about. I have no idea what this is.
I think that her name is Jean Izzo at this point, but they're pointing out that she's related to, that she is Nay Simek, as they would say. I don't know. I'm just guessing.
Perhaps so. I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know. It's something that I do not understand.
Yes. But yeah, it's a shame to have Tartaglione on inking Roth on a lot of this backup. John Vorporten has been doing the backup inking, and he's been doing a better job than Tartaglione does here. But it's just shocking how much better this art in this backup is than the front half of the book. It's, it's bad when Roth and Tartaglione are a huge improvement on the art you're doing. But Barry Smith, they're a huge improvement. It's really terrible. And then whoever inked the first half of the book, who inked it? It was inked by Michael D., who I've never heard of. So it's not just Barry Smith making his debut as penciler. It's also Michael D. making his debut as inker.
I think we've seen the name Michael D. before at least once, haven't we? And I'm 100% certain that has to be a pseudonym for somebody.
Yeah, probably.
But I haven't bothered to look that up.
And then there's a long letter from Mark Grunwald in the bank, who was always great.
Yes, the great Mark Grunwald. Okay, so let's move on to the Incredible Hulk number 112, The Brute Battles On. And on the cover, we have the Hulk looking like he is on the ropes down on the ground with Sagittarian Warlord above him, acting triumphant while there are a bunch of Sagittarian soldiers in the background. And we notice once again, everyone's eyes are kind of squinty to where we don't see the eyes. And that just seems to be what Herb Trimpe does at this point in his artistic career.
Yes.
Everybody's
I swear
eyes.
It wasn't like this when Severin was inking him. Maybe Severin was just adding eyes to everybody, but Dan Atkins is definitely not doing that. And everybody's eyes in the entire issue are seemingly closed or squinty or just blacked out. And it is so strange. Like right away on the first page, the princess of the, I guess they're called Sagittarian people, says, "Be you silent, I shall see for myself." It's like, no, you're not going to see for yourself because your eyes are closed. Everybody's eyes are closed. Why are your eyes all closed?
Well,
Literally every single panel of every single page of this book.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm not sure whether they've been called Sagittarians yet at this point, but I know that I looked it up at some point and they eventually will be named the Sagittarians.
Okay.
So I've just been referring to them as that, just out of convenience. So the brute battles on, powerfully presented by Smilin' Stan Lee and Happy Herb Trimpe. Embellishment Dan Adkins, lettering Artie Simek.
So usually Dan Atkins is one of Marvel's best inkers, but he is not interacting well with Trimpe in this book, and I do not like the art in this book. I love it when Trimpe does Hulk inked by John Severin, but with another great inker here, it's just not delivering. Over and above everyone having their eyes closed, it's just clunky art. It's Trimpe is just a very inker-dependent penciler, and he's very sensitive in the inkers that he needs.
Yes. So we start out with the princess of the Sagittarians being approached by a flunky, basically, saying, "My princess, your uncle, our warlord supreme, has returned from Earth. With him, a deadly green-skinned monster." And then she uses some kind of a remote control that looks like a gun to turn on some kind of TV viewer. So she sees that the Hulk is defying the Galaxy Master. She says, "The madness of space must be upon him. I will activate the audio beam that I may hear his final words." But the Hulk ends up jumping up and trying to fight the Galaxy Master and is theoretically being destroyed by him. But then the Hulk is able to get up. The Galaxy Master is like, "Aha, challenge. I haven't had one of these in ages." And so he turns himself into what looks like a classic Kirby or Ditko monster comic monster and comes at Hulk with giant sledgehammer hands.
The whole problem of having the villain be a giant mouth in the air is that that's a villain that the Hulk is particularly unsuited to fight. The Hulk can't fly. He doesn't have any sort of projectile weapons. It doesn't seem like much good to jump up and punch a mouth in the air, which he tries a couple of times here. So then they have to sort of rewrite on the fly and have the Galaxy Master then create beings on the planet for the Hulk to fight as just a way to get some sort of fighting going on in this issue instead of the Hulk just constantly leaping up and punching the mouth. And it's awkward.
So the Sagittarians see this fight going on, see that the Hulk is not being destroyed as they expected him to be immediately. And one of them says to the warlord, "Sire, impossible as it seems, perhaps the monster can defeat our tyrannical master, and then we shall be free once more." And the warlord says, "Silence, speak to me not of treason." So we get the feeling that these people are not liking their lot in life, serving the Galaxy Master, and are looking for any way to get themselves free, but there is some dissension in the ranks. So this seems like a classic Stan Lee storytelling trope of the alien race where there are warring factions of good and evil among them. So to the extent that people argue about how much did Stan Lee contribute to these stories, this would seem to indicate that that is an indicator that he had something to do with the storytelling, that element comes up.
Yeah, one of his favorite tropes.
So the Galaxy Master continues to turn himself into things that can fight the Hulk. The Hulk at one point picks up the ship that carried him there and tosses it into the Galaxy Master, which sets off some kind of atomic fire. He's able to use his massive hand clap to put out the fire. The princess at this point makes the decision that she's going to throw in with the Hulk, that she wants to free her people from the tyranny of the Galaxy Master. And they get a bit of a flashback about how the Galaxy Master was created by this alien race.
Who look a lot like Kang and Kodos.
You're right, they do, don't they? And Galaxy Master had been one of them, this Kang and Kodos looking race, but that he immediately turned against them and destroyed them. And at that point, he decided that the most important thing was his own survival. And as long as anyone else was alive in the galaxy, that he was in danger. So he is trying to essentially eliminate all life so that he cannot be eliminated. And he has these Sagittarians in his thrall. Essentially, he said, I will let you live as long as you help me in my mission. And there are people among them who are like, this was a shameful bargain that we made, and we must get out of it, and we must defeat this guy. And the princess has thrown in with that faction at this point. Although her uncle, the warlord, wants to hear none of this. And so he is going to the Galaxy Master to rat them out, basically. And he thinks that he will be rewarded by the Galaxy Master for passing on this information. He will be mistaken. So Hulk and the Galaxy Master continue to fight. At one point, the Galaxy Master turns himself into a gas cloud, a cloud of foaming toxic gas. And we have well established that gas is one attack that can work very effectively against the Hulk. So, as I said earlier, that warlord shows up and says, Galaxy Master, your people are turning against you. I'm here to warn you. And then now, I have no fear, for you will protect me. And the Galaxy Master is like, protect you? You are less than a fleeting thought. The Galaxy Master protects only himself and ends up destroying the one who is going to sell out his people for safety from the Galaxy Master. So the Galaxy Master seems to defeat the rebellion against him and is tractor beaming the princess up to himself. And the Hulk sees this and says, up in sky, a beam going toward my enemy. Hulk must reach it before it fades. And then he says, inside of beam, girl is trapped. Maybe Hulk can save her. So he ends up getting in this tractor beam and ends up finding himself inside the Galaxy Master, whatever that would mean in this case, for him being a floating sort of amoeba mouth kind of thing. And he starts wrecking havoc inside the Galaxy Master's body, and then finds something that seems to be the brain or something of that matter and smashes it, at which point the Galaxy Master is completely destroyed. Hulk ends up saving the falling princess, and let's see. Oh, I thought that the warlord had been killed by the Galaxy Master, but he still seems to be alive here on page 19. But not for long. He ends up, through his cowardice, falling into a giant crevice that was created originally, supposedly, to trap the Hulk. And so he ends up dying. The princess and the Hulk are both in agreement that although he was their hero and deserves accolades, he does not belong here among these people. They both agree to that. So then they're like, it'll just take like an hour to modify one of our ships to have the correct cabin pressure for you for the trip back. And Hulk says, no, Hulk will not wait. Hulk can live in any pressure. Start ship now. Now. Hulk must leave this world now. So they're like, okay.
And apparently they just go along with that. They're like, okay, well, you'll die, but if you insist, we'll go ahead and launch you off.
Well, they're like, well, he says he can withstand this pressure change, so why not? We'll let him figure that out. But then, of course, he changes back to Bruce Banner during the trip, and he says the air. Well, this doesn't make much sense. The air too thin for me to breathe, and the pressure more than I can bear, which is the opposite. Air being too thin and the pressure being too much. But that's fine. That's being a nitpicker. And then finally it says to be Hulk-inued. So the art in this issue isn't fantastic, as you mentioned. Everybody's eyes are just sort of smears of ink. But overall, I like the story. It is a bit of a throwback to some of the earlier days of Marvel when we would get a lot of these sorts of alien races under the heel of a dictator, and there's a faction trying to break free kind of story. So it feels a little nostalgic, and I always like those sorts of stories. So overall, I think I'll give this issue a thumbs up, despite some reservations on the art.
Yeah, I mean, open your eyes, everybody. Open your eyes. Why are your eyes closed? But it's and also, why do a story in which the Hulk has to fight a giant mouth in the sky? Yeah, I have issues with this issue, but Trimpy is giving it his all, except for not giving anybody eyes. But there's a lot of dynamism in this issue in the various Hulks that the Hulk does get to fight. And yeah, I agree. I like the whole princess disagreeing with her people, instead of just doing like, it's an evil race, which weaker writers would do. It is funny that Lee was off this book for a while, and now he's on it again with a vengeance. He is back in love with the Hulk and with this book, but I have a lot of issues with this issue, as I've said.
Yes. And that's fair.
Yes.
All right. So I believe that we have reached the end of this particular episode. I do want to say one thing that we do not say enough is thank you to those of you who have become patrons on our Patreon.
Yes.
We definitely appreciate you for supporting us in what we do. And just wanted to make sure that you know that that we appreciate it.
Yes, and we'll try to put out some more content for you at some point soon that will be a special treat just for you.
Yes, indeed. So, in addition to that, anyone else out there who's interested, we do have a Patreon. We also have a standing request, if you haven't done so yet, to rate and review us on whatever your podcasting platform is. That always helps us be found by other people who are searching for content that they would be interested in what we're doing here. Also, just tell anybody that might possibly be interested. For all you know, they might find out about this and thank you profusely and enjoy being around with us in addition.
Or they may feel that you've cursed to them and they'll never forgive you.
Yes, that's a non-zero chance.
Yes.
So anyway, Matt, do you have anything else to say before we sign off here?
Nope. I always enjoy doing this podcast, and thank you for letting us do it. And like I said, special thank you to our patrons, but thanks to everybody. And we will see you next week.
All right. That sounds great. Thank you so much. Take care. And that is assuming that we don't have another delay here with me still traveling for a little while. Hopefully the next episode will come out on schedule, but it's possible it might not.
Yes.
Okay. So anyway, thank you very much, everybody. Take care and stay safe out there.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed it, we now have a Patreon where you can show your appreciation. If you've got a few bucks, head over to patreon.marvelrereadclub.com to support us. Also, you can still rate and review us at your podcatcher of choice, and that would be greatly appreciated as well. You can find us online at marvelrereadclub.com, as well as Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Threads. See you next time.